the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Monday, coming to you live and direct from the News Channel 5 studios downtown. I hope you had a good weekend, and we're getting things back up and running again, as we always do, working with the skeleton staff here down at the studios. Most of the folks here at News Channel 5 now working safely from at home. I'm working safely from here in the studio for our live program. We've got a good panel of guests this morning. We're in the process of getting them all hooked up. As you know, they don't come into the studio anymore. It's a matter of doing things electronically, either by Skype or Zoom or FaceTime. And so when we get them hooked up, we'll bring them to you. Our first guest this morning, as soon as we get him electronically connected, will be Nashville Mayor John Cooper. And I want to remind you, not only coming to you on News Channel 5 Plus as you're watching me on the TV right now, but you can also go to Facebook at newschannel5.com, and we're streaming live there. And what we'd like to do is give you the opportunity as well to message me, and if we can, we'll squeeze in some questions for you for the mayor. We should say later in the program, we'll also be joined by Tom Morales. He is the founder of Tomcats Hospitality, and he'll be on talking about the restaurant business and how it will go about slowly reopening, and what the main concerns will be. And I want to know from him whether or not he thinks the customers will be ready to come back. I think a lot of them are. They just want to make sure it's safe, and I know that's exactly what restaurants want to provide. Then later, rounding out the program, we'll be joined by Beth Brown. She's the president of the Tennessee Education Association. And we have to realize that as things start rebounding and reopening, a lot of folks may be going back to work, but at the same time, if they have children, you know what, they're not going to have school to go back to. And so that's one of the questions we're going to have to address as well, is what exactly is in place for kids? What are we looking for? I think in general, I think most of us can pretty much assume, whether it's been announced or not, it's highly unlikely any kids will be going back to school for the rest of this year. And, we'll see about summer school and beyond, but I think that's probably it. So what's to be expected for kids, and how things are going with those who are learning at home right now, or, doing so over their computers and the like. As far as getting with the mayor, when we have him on, hopefully we'll get him connected here in a moment. Couple things we'll ask him about. As you know, last week we had his roadmap for opening Nashville. I printed it up this morning. I was listening to the news conference when he, went over the details of it and looking at it, the 4 different phases. And keep in mind, Nashville is one of a handful of cities in a handful of counties that are not under the governor's order, okay, to necessarily begin the phase in. The governor, I think for many of those counties that have larger cities, are allowing those health departments there to take charge, and that's exactly what's happening in Metro. And to talk more about that now, I believe we have Metro Nashville Mayor John Cooper. Good morning to you, sir. Can you hear me?
Mayor John Cooper. Good morning.
Oh, I hear the feedback there.
I can hear you.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate it.
Can you see me?
I see you. Okay. I think we're good. I just hear the audio coming from him as he hears me. But here, I'll just hush up and throw a question out for you first and foremost. Over the weekend, I just want to ask you, as you've looked at the numbers and just from last week to where we are now on this Monday, I know you announced your roadmap for reopening Nashville. The health department here is going to set the stage for it. Has anything changed in your mind? What do you see happening, and as we move forward that first phase? Go ahead, Mayor.
Right. Well, we're excited about getting to the first phase. The information today, we're going to have a ton of cases. However, each of these weekends has had a spike up in cases that probably can be balanced due to the wonderful fact that we had no additional fatalities, and our hospitalization rate has stayed the same. So public health is going to have to deeply look into these numbers. Where did we get these cases from? And are they coming from a source that we should be concerned about, or are we just in the basics of the disease is going to be affecting so many people every weekend, and we're not having a curve. The curve, this is to be a little bit high school math about it, is arithmetic and not exponential. And we need to keep it at an arithmetic rate of increase. But we have to accept the rate. It looks like a rate of increase, and we're going to have to accept living with the disease. And that's going to require good social distancing techniques even after we've restarted the economy.
Hammering to restart the economy. I know that the governor's taken steps for other counties. Metro gets to decide on its own. How important is that balance? I know you hear from the people frustrated that they can't get to work and are worried about putting food on the table. But do you worry that if things do come back too fast, that we could backslide and end up back at square one?
Well, of course I do. And the state order, there's not really an enforceability structure to where the state is. There is in metro health departments. And I think the enforceability is something that everybody deservedly relies on. We've all made a huge sacrifice to get the county where we are. I mean, at one point, we would have been thrilled to have had only 22 fatalities a month into the disease. We're thrilled at that hard work. We don't want it coming undone because of people gun jumping or not following good basic social health distancing. And we have the right, every right, to be concerned when other people aren't following it.
It out at all, where you may go if you had to go do something. What did you observe? Because when I went out, I mean, a lot of places, I just wonder if people are still observing social distancing. I know a lot are, but I think an awful lot are not.
Well, and we are encouraging people to call 211-311. If you've got a concern, report it. We need to be in this together. Now, I took advantage of the weekend and I went walking, I went biking, and I played 5 holes of golf rather badly. I was encouraged at what I saw, that people were complying and actually doing a better job of distancing this past weekend than they did in the past. It's like we're learning together how to do it.
Shift a little bit more over to the whole idea of this property tax increase, which you've talked about, and you said it's just something that we really have no choice on. And, a lot of people wondering, they feel things are tight economically as it is. How can we afford a property tax increase? I think you make a strong case that the city has no choice. Can you put that more into perspective this morning?
Well, I'll have a more detailed discussion of this tomorrow afternoon with a presentation to the council. It's not elective, our having a property tax increase. The federal government is not going to be a help in getting us through our missing sales tax collections. We do have a platform for the city that we're going to need to have a recovery, and the recovery could happen at any day and any week. And the reality is too dramatic a revenue shortfall has happened too quickly. You can't cut your way out of it. You can manage the problem down, but you're going to need property tax money to have a stable and safe government. Ultimately, the city it already had very thin cash balances. Those cash balances are severely challenged by the epidemic. And to have a safe city going forward, you're going to have to get that refunded. You're going to have some cash because we value our police officers and our firemen, and we're going to want to be able to pay them. We don't want to. 1,000 cities are talking about layoffs of their public service workers. Now, we're not going to do that in Nashville, but I'm just telling you, it is that serious for cities across the country.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because I want to try to get this out so people understand what's at stake here. Certainly, yeah. Can you imagine cutting law enforcement or firefighters? If there wasn't the property tax increase that you're recommending, talk about what else. How dire would the situation be? Would the city literally shut down?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, missing a couple $100 million worth of revenue for a city like us it's gigantic. And you would have to consider that kind of action, which would be even crazier than the property tax increase. I mean, to have a tax increase in the middle of the worst recession probably of my lifetime is itself crazy. But there is no federal help for this. The bailout has gone to businesses, not to governments for the missing sales tax money. And you still have to have a government that's ready to go when we reopen. And so we're trying to navigate all these difficulties to get us through into the port safely.
Parents and youngsters out there, they see that the NBA is going to be back this weekend with practice, and sports, when will it come? We don't know about Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts with regard to some of these little leagues, and at what point, what phase would that come in if they are allowed to get back to play safely?
Well, currently mass athletic events are very late in the process. And we're going to know a whole lot about how to do social distancing by the time that we get there. Some people have said you can't maybe not do it until there's really a vaccine or an effective antibody test. But there's a lot that can be done as we socially distance appropriately. And probably increasingly we'll have limited group activity. Obviously, sports and our kids are a big priority. But let's be honest, nobody's thinking that you're going to have 20,000 people at Memorial Gym or 50,000 people in the Titans Stadium until our path with the disease changes. That's both technology and our technique for dealing with it.
You would be the one then, of course, based on the phasing, that would make the call on whether or not the Titans have fans in the stands come this preseason football, correct?
Well, technically, being in Davidson County, I think that's probably true. But the reality is, I'm sure the NFL will have a very good best practice regime. And a lot of other states which are direly affected, like New York and New Jersey, I'm sure will have a very careful regime. And in the end, I'm sure we'll be playing under some sort of league protocol and a league how-to. In the end, I don't know. I mean, we're just talking out loud. Maybe every player gets tested a few days before so that everybody knows the players are safe, the coaching staff is safe, and you don't have people in the stands. You're playing on TV. Well, that would be exciting for people too. And it may be that you're at that stage, directed by the best healthcare advice. And again, people have been super responsive. I think the NFL is aware of the challenges of doing this, and they're brainstorming about how to do it correctly. All life is about technique, and a lot of these problems, I think, can be solved by excellent technique, but you have to know exactly how to do it safely.
Do you believe that there will be football this year?
Do I believe there'll be football? I do. I do. I mean, this is only 30 days after the Safer at Home order was signed in Nashville, right? So anything that's a few months away, we're going to have time to develop the techniques for dealing with activities. And we just have to get those safe techniques established. And the being in person for a game is going to be challenging, but that doesn't mean that games can't continue.
That front and
maybe we're wiping off the ball with Purell every every play.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
okay.
All those are options.
Maybe
all right.
That's the future.
Yeah, and as far as education, Mayor, if things do start opening up, there are going to be folks that maybe can get back to work, which is a good thing if they can do so safely. But many of them are going to have kids that aren't in schools. I'm just wondering, with regard to daycare and education, and since schools may not reopen, I mean, what do you suggest in that front?
Right. Well, both with schools and with childcare is going to take special work by the public health department and needs to be open and reopened safely. Childcare, I think, in the end, becomes essential to a reopened economy. But you have to understand the risks and the practices to do that safely. Obviously, there's childcare available now for essential workers, as has to be. And ultimately, schools also have to open, but in an appropriate way in a socially distant era. And now investments in distance learning are going to be critical in the years ahead as cities and people learn how to do things a little bit differently.
As far as testing is concerned, are you satisfied with the level of testing that's been done? And I understand today the state's also going to introduce the fact that they're going to try to start doing more antibody testing, which is a different thing beyond just the nose swab. Your take on that? Would you like to see the more testing going in, and any thoughts on the antibody testing?
Well, testing is very valuable, and I think the general good social health guideline would be that Nashville be able to test about 5,000 tests a week. We're very close to that capability. Now, a few weeks ago, we were at almost zero capability. So having the kind of public health norm and being able to achieve it is one of the reasons we're able to talk about getting the economy restarted. Now, going forward, the more testing that you do, the more you're going to be able to make the disease visible and limit its spread. So that's extremely important. Now, in terms of antibody tests, that's part of, I'm sure, the long-term technology response that's going to happen. But right now, everybody tells me that it's an unreliable standard with antibody tests, and don't think that you're going to save the economy in the short term with those tests. They're just too unreliable based on science from what we know right now.
Right. I think there is the concern, one, on the efficiency of those tests, and then also it's still unclear right now. I don't know what your experts have told you, but we don't know for sure whether or not someone who's had COVID-19 is then immune to it after the fact and can't get it a second time.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons this makes this disease uniquely difficult, both being asymptomatic and then we don't know for sure the immune system path with the disease, and the ability of the disease to change a little bit over time, to evolve. It's wicked and sophisticated.
On this morning for us. I know how busy you are. I know I'll see you later this morning in your daily news conference, but I really do appreciate your time and all the hard work you put into making us all safe here in Davidson County. Thank you again, sir, for your time.
Well, thank you, Nick. It's a treat to be here. Invite me back.
If you'll come, we will. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll transition from the mayor to the aspect of restaurants and what their approach will be moving forward, whether it's here in Davidson County. As you see, the phasing a little different here than it is around the rest of the state, but someone who knows the restaurant business, food service business better than just about anyone, Tom Morales, will be joining us with Tomcats Hospitality. We'll get his take and more of your questions and comments, if we can get to them here, technically speaking, right after this. Stay with us.